The morning sun had barely risen over the dusty backroads of rural Nebraska. A cloud of dry dirt trailed behind an old, rusted livestock truck as it barreled down the highway, its rickety wooden sides groaning under the weight of squealing piglets. The driver, a man with a cigarette between his lips and little patience left in him, didn't notice the loose latch on the back corner of the gate. Nor did he care. That's when it happened. A small piglet, barely a few weeks old, pink and trembling, was jostled near the edge by the weight of its siblings. With a sudden bump in the road, the gate swung open just enough. The piglet lost its footing, and in an instant, it tumbled out, hitting the pavement with a sickening thud before rolling into a patch of dry weeds off the roadside. The truck kept going. No brakes, no slowing down, no looking back. Dust settled over the little animal as it lay motionless for a moment. Its left leg was twisted at an awkward angle, and a scratch on its ear oozed a thin line of blood. But the piglet's chest still moved, shallow, frightened breaths. Later that morning, Dr. Evelyn Carter was on her way home after an overnight emergency surgery on a dairy cow 2 towns over. She was a large animal vet with strong arms, gentle eyes, and a heart that could never harden, no matter how many times she'd seen animals mistreated. Her pickup truck rattled as it moved over the same worn road, country music playing low on the radio. She was already thinking about sleep when something pink caught her eye on the side of the road. She braked fast, tires crunching gravel, and threw the truck in reverse. Heart skipping, she jumped out and jogged to the spot. "Oh my God," Evelyn breathed, crouching down. There it was, barely alive. Dirt-covered, bleeding, the piglet looked like it had been tossed like garbage. She examined it quickly, her hands steady despite the rush of anger boiling inside. Broken leg, probably some internal bruising, but alive. "You poor baby," she whispered, scooping the piglet up in a soft old flannel blanket she kept behind her seat. The drive to her home clinic felt longer than it was. She placed the piglet on the examination table, her hands moving fast now, checking vitals, cleaning wounds, setting the leg with a temporary splint. All the while, the tiny creature whimpered softly but didn't fight, as if it somehow knew Evelyn was trying to help. Her husband, Mark, appeared in the doorway not long after. "You bringin' strays home again?" he asked, smiling despite himself. He had a rugged face, laugh lines around his eyes, and a voice like weathered oak. Evelyn shot him a look. "Not a stray. Dumped." Mark walked over and looked at the piglet, now dozing under a heat lamp with its splint in place and a soft bandage over its ear. He whistled low. "Damn, what are you gonna do with it?" Evelyn didn't answer at first. She just stared at the sleeping piglet, her chest tight. "I'm not taking it back to whatever hell it came from." Their 10-year-old daughter, Lily, came bounding in seconds later, her blonde hair wild and her oversized t-shirt covered in crayon stains. She skidded to a stop when she saw the piglet. "A piglet!" she shrieked. Evelyn chuckled. "Shh, sweetheart. He's sleeping. Hurt pretty bad." Lily inched closer. "Is he gonna die?" "No," Evelyn said firmly. "Not if I can help it." "Can we keep him?" Lily's voice was a mixture of pleading and hope. "Please? Please, Mom. I'll take care of him. I'll feed him and clean his poop and everything." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You will, huh?" Evelyn smiled. "Let's get him through the next few days first. But if he makes it, maybe." They didn't name him right away. Evelyn wasn't sure he'd even survive the week. But Lily didn't care. She read books to him while he lay recovering in a padded box near the fireplace. She talked to him like he was her little brother. And the piglet, well, he listened. His ears would twitch. Sometimes he'd try to raise his head to look at her. Evelyn was stunned by the piglet's will to live. Within 3 days, he was eating from a bottle. Within a week, he was limping around the kitchen floor. The splint stayed on for now, but he dragged it behind him like a badge of honor. It was Lily who finally gave him a name. "Let's call him Murphy," she declared one evening, watching him clumsily try to chase their dog, Toby. "'Cause he had the worst luck, but now he's lucky." Mark chuckled. "Murphy it is, then." And just like that, the piglet had a name, and a home. But the story was just beginning. Murphy was unlike any animal Evelyn had ever brought home, and there had been plenty over the years. Injured raccoons, abandoned kittens, even a one-eyed owl once. But none of them had burrowed into the family's hearts the way this piglet did. By the end of the second week, Murphy had free rein of the kitchen. He'd learned to scoot on 3 legs, dragging the splinted one awkwardly behind, but his spirit was irrepressible. He followed Evelyn like a shadow, especially in the mornings when she made coffee. He'd bump her ankle with his soft snout until she knelt down and scratched behind his ears. Persistent little guy, Mark would mutter with a grin, watching the routine from behind the sports section of the newspaper. Thinks he owns the place. He kind of does, Evelyn replied once, not even joking. Murphy had earned his place. At night, he slept in a dog crate lined with blankets next to the fireplace. It had once belonged to Toby, their aging golden retriever, who now preferred Lily's bed. Murphy didn't seem to mind. He liked the warmth, the quiet hum of the house settling, and most of all, the sense of safety he'd never known. Lily was the first to teach him tricks. With pieces of cut-up apples, she taught him how to sit, then spin in a circle. Mark rolled his eyes when she insisted Murphy could learn stay like a dog, but to everyone's amazement, he did. The neighbors noticed. One afternoon, Mrs. Klein from down the road stopped by with a jar of peach preserves and ended up staying on the porch for over an hour, laughing as Murphy snorted and wobbled around her feet. "Well, I'll be damned," she said wide-eyed. "I've seen farm pigs and show pigs, but I ain't never seen a pig do a figure-8 for apple slices." "He's smart," Evelyn said proudly. "Like scary smart." Mrs. Klein leaned in. "You know people are talking. Folks at the grain store say you've lost your mind, keeping a pig in the house." Evelyn smiled. "Wouldn't be the first time people said that." "And it won't be the last," Mark added, sipping lemonade beside her. Still, Evelyn knew they had to be careful. Murphy was growing faster than she expected. His broken leg had healed well, but his appetite was endless. By the end of the first month, he'd outgrown the crate. Evelyn moved him to a corner of the mudroom, setting up a soft bed of straw and a baby gate. But at night, he'd cry until someone, usually Lily, came and slept next to him on an old sleeping bag. "I think he gets lonely," Lily whispered one night. "Or spoiled," Mark replied with a yawn. But they let her stay there anyway. As fall rolled in and Nebraska's cornfields turned dry and gold, Evelyn noticed something else. Murphy wasn't just getting stronger, he was adapting. He'd learned which floorboards creaked, where the dog food was stored, and how to open the refrigerator door using his snout. Twice, Evelyn caught him dragging out celery and shoving it behind the sofa cushions like he was saving it for later. "Gotta give him points for planning," Mark muttered after the second time. Evelyn began researching pig behavior in depth. Not the farm manuals she'd memorized back in vet school, but books and forums on keeping pigs as companions. She found a surprising number of people who did just that. In suburbs, in cities, even in apartments. But there was a catch. Mini pigs didn't stay mini. Even those sold as teacup breeds often grew to 70 to 100 pounds or more. Evelyn knew Murphy wasn't a teacup. He was a standard pink farm pig. The kind raised for meat, not for family. He'd grow big, maybe over 200 pounds, and fast. She discussed it with Mark late one night while Lily was asleep. "He's a pig, Ev," Mark said gently. "Eventually he's going to be too big for the house. You know that." "I know," she admitted. "But what am I supposed to do? He's not just a pig anymore." "He's family," Mark said. "I get it, but we need to think ahead." That week, Mark started building an enclosure in the backyard. A small barn-like structure with insulation and a sturdy door. It wasn't a pen, it was a home, complete with a heated lamp, fresh straw, and a flap that Murphy could push through to come and go. When they first introduced him to it, Murphy balked. He sniffed the ground, snorted at the straw, then turned and ran back toward the kitchen door, squealing. "He doesn't want to leave the house," Lily said, near tears. "He won't be leaving," Evelyn assured her. "He's just getting his own room." They spent the next week coaxing Murphy into his new space with apple slices and peanut butter crackers. Eventually, he grew to love it, especially after Mark installed a low radio that played classical music on a timer. Murphy would lay there on cool afternoons, eyes half closed, listening to Bach. He still came inside often, especially on cold nights. But it was clear he was growing up. The piglet who once fit in Evelyn's arms now weighed nearly 50 pounds and could knock over furniture when excited. By mid-November, Murphy had become a local celebrity. Kids at Lily's school begged to come over and meet the miracle pig. Evelyn had to post a sign asking visitors not to feed him, after someone brought a bag of marshmallows and nearly made him sick. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope, addressed simply to Carter residents. Inside was a printed notice from the county agriculture department. Someone had reported an unauthorized livestock operation in a residential zone. The letter warned of potential fines and an order to relocate non-domestic animals to a permitted facility. Evelyn stared at it in silence. Murphy lay at her feet, napping. Mark read over her shoulder. Someone turned us in. Probably that jerk with the alpaca farm, Evelyn muttered. He's hated me since I told his llama had mange. What do we do? Evelyn folded the paper slowly. We fight. Because she wasn't losing Murphy. Not without a battle. Evelyn stared at the folded letter on the kitchen table for a long time that night. The edge of the paper lined up perfectly with the wood grain beneath it. Outside, a soft snow had begun to fall, dusting the porch railing and muffling the night sounds of rural Nebraska. Murphy was asleep in his heated shelter out back, snuggled into a blanket Lily had embroidered with tiny apples and the letter M. She felt a cold fury brewing in her chest. She had devoted her life to healing animals. Cows, dogs, horses, ferrets, even a baby deer once. And now some faceless bureaucrat was threatening to rip Murphy away from the only home he'd ever known. Mark came up behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You okay? No, she replied flatly. But I will be. He took a seat across from her and reached for the letter. They're giving us 30 days. Evelyn nodded. To relocate him. To what? A pig sanctuary? There isn't one around here. I'm not putting him on another truck, she said sharply. Not again. Lily came into the room in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. What's going on? Evelyn considered lying, softening it, but changed her mind. Someone complained about Murphy. The county wants us to get rid of him. Lily froze. They want to take him away? No one's taking him, Mark said firmly. Not without a fight. Lily's lower lip trembled. We have to do something. We will, Evelyn promised, but we'll need help. The next morning, Evelyn called her lawyer friend Janice Harrell, who handled local disputes and agricultural zoning issues. Janice listened carefully, then sighed. Ev, the law's murky on this. Pigs aren't considered companion animals under the residential code. Technically, he's livestock, and livestock can't be kept in non-ag zones unless it's 4-H registered or used for education. He's not for meat, he's not for sale, he's family. I believe you, but we need to prove that. How? Media, public support, petitions, letters. You're a vet, you have community respect. If you can get people to rally behind you, the board might reconsider. Evelyn hung up and stared out the window at Murphy, who was rolling happily in a patch of dry straw, oblivious to the bureaucratic storm brewing around him. She opened her laptop. By noon, she had created a Facebook page titled Murphy the Miracle Pig, sharing his story. How he fell off a livestock truck, how he was rescued, and how he'd become a beloved member of their family. She posted photos of Lily brushing his back, Murphy curled next to Toby by the fire, and even a short video of him pushing open the fridge and stealing a carrot. She hit publish and waited. It didn't take long. By that evening, the page had over 200 followers. By the next morning, 3,000. Messages poured in from all over the state, even from other parts of the country. People shared stories of their own pet pigs, supported Murphy, and called the county's stance cruel, backwards, and shameful. Local news called 2 days later. KMTV, the Omaha affiliate, sent a young reporter named Jesse to film a segment. Jesse wore a bright green parka and asked Lily thoughtful questions about Murphy. What makes him special? She asked gently. Lily, sitting beside Murphy, stroked his side. He's not just special. He's ours. Jesse blinked quickly and smiled. That'll make a good soundbite. They filmed Murphy walking through the kitchen, Murphy playing tug-of-war with Toby, and Murphy pushing Lily's backpack with his snout. By the time the story aired, the petition had reached 12,000 signatures. Evelyn took a copy of it, printed, thick, and rubber-banded, and marched into the county building the following Tuesday. The receptionist looked startled as she dropped it on the desk. Please make sure the board receives this, she said calmly. 2 days later, she received a call. The board had agreed to hold a public hearing. It was scheduled for a week later, at the township hall. Word spread quickly. Flyers appeared at local businesses. Students at Lily's school made handmade posters. Save Murphy. A pig is family too. Justice for our favorite hog. On the day of the hearing, snow blanketed the roads in a thick layer. Evelyn worried it would keep people home. Instead, the parking lot overflowed. Farmers in heavy coats, students in mismatched scarves, mothers with strollers, elderly women in wool hats, all came, bundled against the cold, many holding signs or petitions. Inside, the township hall was warm but tense. The board sat behind a long table, 5 stern-looking officials with nameplates and paperwork. One of them, Councilwoman Reese, adjusted her glasses as Evelyn stepped forward. "Dr. Carter," she said, "you may present your case." Evelyn cleared her throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, Murphy is not livestock. He is a member of our family. He was discarded like trash by people who saw him as a product. We gave him life, not for profit, but for love." She passed out photos, vet records, and even Murphy's obedience certificate from a dog training class they had jokingly enrolled him in. She wasn't a natural speaker, but she spoke from the heart. Then she stepped back, and Lily came forward. No one had asked her to, but she held up a hand-drawn picture of Murphy in front of their fireplace, surrounded by hearts. "My mom saves animals every day," Lily said. "But Murphy saved us too. He makes us laugh when we're sad. He listens when I talk. He's my best friend." The room was silent. Councilwoman Reese blinked. "Thank you." They went into deliberation. The room buzzed with whispers and cold hands gripping warm mugs. Evelyn felt the anxiety boiling under her skin. 30 minutes passed, then 45. Finally, the board returned. Reese looked up. "After consideration, the board has voted 4-1 in favor of granting a special exemption. Dr. Carter may retain custody of Murphy, provided she registers him as a therapeutic companion animal and abides by regular inspections." The room erupted in applause. Lily screamed with joy. Evelyn's knees went weak with relief. Murphy, oblivious to it all, was home eating apples dipped in peanut butter. That night, under a blanket of stars, Evelyn walked out to his little barn and knelt beside him. "We won," she whispered. Murphy grunted and snuggled closer. But even as she smiled, Evelyn knew this chapter was only the beginning. Murphy was safe, for now. But change was coming. Change they couldn't yet see. Winter in Nebraska rolled on harsh and unrelenting. The snow deepened with each passing week, muffling the world in white silence. But inside the Carter household, the mood was anything but quiet. Murphy, no longer a piglet, had grown to over 80 pounds by the new year. His once round baby face had stretched into the beginnings of a long, expressive snout, and his legs, especially the one that had once been broken, had grown strong and sturdy. He could now hop into the back of Evelyn's pickup truck without help, and when he ran, it sounded like someone dragging a suitcase down the stairs. Lily had taken to measuring him weekly, using a tape measure and a clipboard like a scientist. "He's up 3 inches in girth, Mom," she'd shout from the mudroom. "Do you think he's gonna break 100 soon?" Mark groaned one evening as Murphy galloped across the living room to fetch a tennis ball Lily had tossed. A side table tipped dangerously. A ceramic lamp wobbled and fell with a crash. "That's the 3rd one this month," he said, brushing shards off the carpet. Evelyn chuckled and picked up Murphy's ears. "You might be getting a little too big for the living room, buddy." Murphy snorted, completely unbothered, and flopped onto his side. It was becoming harder to pretend Murphy was just another household pet. His food bill had doubled. His bedding needed to be changed daily. He insisted on joining Lily at the breakfast table and once tried to eat an entire box of Lucky Charms, cardboard and all. Evelyn caught him nose deep in the recycling bin more than once, chewing newspaper like it was gourmet hay. Mark suggested fencing off a larger area of the yard. "Let him stretch out," he said. "Give him his own domain." They built it together over a long weekend, Lily painting signs that read "Murphy's Kingdom" in rainbow letters and attaching them to the posts. Murphy's new area had a small pond for wallowing, a patch of trees for shade, and a sandpit Lily dug for him to root around in. But even with his new space, Murphy remained loyal to the family routine. Every morning, he waited by the back door until Evelyn came out with her thermos of coffee. Every afternoon, he lay by the window, watching for the school bus that carried Lily home. And every evening he insisted on a story before bed, curling beside Lily's blanket and snorting softly as she read to him from books about dragons, pirates, or faraway kingdoms. One day in early March, Lily came home with a flyer crumpled in her backpack. "Career Day is next Friday," she said excitedly. "Can I bring Murphy?" Evelyn raised her eyebrows. "To school?" "Ms. Jansen said we could bring animals if they're safe. And Murphy's a registered therapy pig now. You have his paperwork and everything." Evelyn hesitated. "He's never been around that many kids. But he's great with people, and you can talk about being a vet, too. It's perfect," Mark chimed in. "Honestly, could be good press." Evelyn relented. They spent the week preparing. Lily made a slideshow with baby pictures of Murphy and clips from the news broadcast. Evelyn assembled a kit with Murphy's health certificate, therapy animal registration, and a laminated badge with his name and a tiny paw print signature. Friday morning dawned cold but sunny. Murphy trotted up the ramp into Evelyn's truck with the confidence of a celebrity. He wore a harness with a visiting animal patch and had been brushed until he gleamed. Lily was practically vibrating with excitement. When they pulled into the school parking lot, kids gathered by the windows to watch. Inside, the gymnasium was transformed into a presentation hall. Tables lined the perimeter, each labeled with a profession: firefighter, nurse, park ranger, mechanic. Evelyn and Lily set up at a small folding table with a banner that read, "Veterinary Science plus Murphy the Therapy Pig." Murphy stood proudly beside them, tail twitching. At first, the children kept their distance, but Murphy was patient. He sniffed politely, let them pet his back, and even posed for photos. When Lily clicked to the first slide and began her presentation, the room quieted. "This is Murphy," she said, pointing. "He fell off a truck when he was a baby. Most people thought he wouldn't survive, but he did. My mom saved him." She clicked again. "Now he helps us. He listens when I'm scared. He cuddles when I cry. He's not just a pig, he's family." There was a long pause. Then the entire class, and then some, applauded. By the end of the day, Evelyn had collected 5 new client cards. The principal had requested Murphy return for Animal Awareness Week, and a teacher had asked if Evelyn would consider bringing him to visit a retirement center downtown. "Therapy visits," Evelyn said to Mark that night. "That's what they're asking for. You think he can handle that?" "I think," she replied, stroking Murphy's head. "He was born for it." So they started slow. The first visit was to a local assisted living facility. Murphy entered cautiously, sniffing the air. Evelyn had worried he might panic. Floors too shiny, too many walkers and unfamiliar smells. But the moment an elderly man named Harold dropped a slice of apple pie onto the floor, Murphy waddled over, licked it up, and laid his chin in Harold's lap. The man wept. "He reminds me of the farm I grew up on," he whispered. "My brother had a pig named Lester. Never thought I'd see one again." By the end of the visit, 5 residents had asked if Murphy would come back. He did, every Wednesday. It became routine, and word spread again. Articles appeared in the local paper. Evelyn's social media filled with photos of Murphy in hats, Murphy riding in elevators, Murphy sitting beside elderly women knitting sweaters. A regional news station ran a follow-up. Soon, Evelyn was fielding calls from schools, hospitals, therapy centers. But with fame came pressure. "Ev," Mark said one night as he sifted through her emails, "you've got 10 appearance requests in the past 2 days. Are we running a pig rescue now?" Evelyn sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "It's getting to be a full-time job. And we still have clients, animals, emergencies." Murphy, unaware, snored on the rug. That night, Evelyn lay awake, staring at the ceiling. They had saved Murphy. They had fought for him, loved him, helped him grow. But now the world wanted more of him than she was sure they could give. And somewhere, just beneath the surface, she began to worry. What if they couldn't protect him forever? Spring thawed the fields around the Carter's farm, replacing snowbanks with patches of green and 1,000 tiny streams. Birds returned. Calves were born. And with the warming winds came a tide of new attention Evelyn hadn't fully prepared for. Murphy was now over 120 pounds, strong, healthy, playful. His fur was still pale pink, but coarse patches had begun to appear near his shoulders. His eyes remained bright, intelligent, and gentle, though there was something increasingly aware behind them now, like he had begun to understand his effect on people. Requests for visits kept pouring in. Elementary schools, rehabilitation centers, even a children's hospital in Lincoln, nearly 2 hours away, called asking if he could attend a weekend event for terminally ill kids. Lily wanted to say yes to all of them. She printed a tiny calendar for Murphy and color-coded it like a manager scheduling a rock star's tour. "Saturday's the hospital visit," she said one evening, sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring in dates with pink and green markers. "Wednesday is the retirement center. Thursday is reading day at school." Mark glanced at Evelyn over his glasses. "She's got him booked through May." Evelyn forced a smile. "He's becoming famous." But with each appearance, she noticed signs that Murphy was growing tired. Nothing dramatic, at first. A yawn during a therapy visit. Slower reaction times. Less interest in new faces. On the drive home from one event, He curled up in the bed of the truck and didn't move for hours after they returned. Maybe he's just maturing, Evelyn suggested to herself. But a knot had formed in her gut, and then came the call that changed everything. It was a Thursday morning, and Evelyn was finishing paperwork in her home office when the phone rang. The voice on the other end introduced herself as Amanda Shaw, talent scout for a national morning show. "We saw the story about Murphy and your daughter," Amanda said, her voice brisk and polished. "We think it's perfect for a special segment. We'd like to fly your family out to New York, cover all expenses, and feature Murphy live in studio. We're talking millions of viewers." Evelyn blinked. "You want to fly a pig?" Amanda laughed. "We'll charter a private pet-friendly flight. We've done it with parrots, goats, even a miniature horse once. We've already spoken to your therapy animal registry contact. You're cleared." Evelyn didn't know what to say. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But let me tell you something, Doctor Carter. This could open doors for you. Book deals, endorsements, a children's book with Lily and Murphy. It's not just a segment, it's a platform." After she hung up, Evelyn sat in silence. Murphy was lying in the hallway, chewing quietly on a rubber dog toy. When she walked past, he lifted his head and looked at her, blinking slowly as if asking, "What's next?" That evening, over dinner, Evelyn told the family. Lily gasped. "New York? Like, the real one? With skyscrapers and yellow taxis?" Mark raised an eyebrow. "Murphy on live TV? They'll fly us out, private plane, cover everything, national exposure." Lily clapped. "We have to go." But Mark hesitated. "I don't know, Ev. Murphy doesn't like noise. He barely tolerated the vet conference last month. What happens if he panics in a studio under lights and cameras?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "That's my fear too." "But we could help people," Lily insisted. "Like the kids at the hospital. What if someone sees him and decides to rescue a pig, or adopt one, or fight for animals like him?" Mark sighed. "That's a lot to put on one pig." Evelyn mulled it over for 2 days. In that time, she observed Murphy carefully. She took him to a nearby farmer's market where he'd previously loved the smells and attention. But this time, he stuck close to her side, flinching when someone dropped a glass jar nearby. She noticed he didn't snort as much when people rubbed his ears. He no longer greeted strangers with enthusiasm. That night, she found him lying in his straw bed, eyes open. She knelt beside him, resting her head gently against his side. "Too much, huh?" she whispered. He didn't answer, of course, but he exhaled slowly, and she felt the weight of him pressing gently into her shoulder. The next morning, she called Amanda Shaw. "We're honored," she said, "but we're going to pass." Amanda was stunned. "Are you sure? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance." "I'm sure," Evelyn said. "Murphy doesn't need more attention. He needs rest. He's not a mascot. He's not a symbol. He's just Murphy. And that's enough." She expected Lily to cry, to argue. But when Evelyn explained everything, how Murphy had been showing signs of stress, how hard it would be for him to fly, to perform, Lily surprised her. "Maybe he's telling us he's done," she said simply. And that was that. They scaled back the visits. Once a week, not 5, only local, no more media. Murphy's energy returned. He started napping in the sun again, chasing Toby around the yard, even attempting to eat a garden hose, twice. The sparkle came back to his eyes. Life settled into something smaller, but truer. Then, one warm afternoon in late May, it happened. Lily came running from the back pasture, breathless. "Mom, Murphy's limping!" Evelyn sprinted outside, heart pounding. Murphy was near the fence, walking stiffly, favoring his left front leg, the good one. She knelt and checked for cuts, swelling. He didn't squeal or resist, but he looked at her with a weariness that made her stomach twist. "Mark," she called. "Help me get him into the truck." She drove straight to the clinic. X-rays confirmed it. A hairline fracture in the leg, likely from jumping too hard or landing wrong. The vet, a colleague she trusted, was optimistic. "He's heavy, sure, but with rest and anti-inflammatories, it'll heal." Still, Evelyn sat in the waiting room for over an hour afterward, staring at the image. He'd been growing fast, too fast, and that weight, it was catching up. When she got home, she updated Lily gently. "Will he be okay?" Lily asked. Yes, but we'll need to help him. Watch his joints. Watch his diet. And slowly, Evelyn began to feel it. That haunting presence she thought she'd beaten. Time. Murphy had defied the odds once, but he was still a pig. Pigs weren't built for long lives in homes or laps or television studios. Even the healthiest ones had limits. And deep down, Evelyn knew their time with him was not infinite. That night, she sat with Mark on the porch as fireflies blinked in the grass. "I can't imagine life without him," she said quietly. "You don't have to yet. But someday I will." Mark nodded. "Someday. But not now." Murphy snored inside the barn, unaware. But change was coming. And this time, it wouldn't be from outside. It would come from within. Summer arrived early in Nebraska that year. The fields ripened faster than usual, and the heat pressed down on everything. Heavy, humid, relentless. Even the breeze felt sluggish, like it carried the weight of the season in its lungs. Murphy spent more time resting. His injured leg, though technically healing, continued to bother him. He walked slower. He grunted more when he stood up. Evelyn adjusted his diet, reduced his food portions, and started adding joint supplements to his meals. But still, she noticed the way he hesitated before moving. The sparkle that had returned in spring seemed to dim again, just slightly, like a star behind a veil. She took him to the vet clinic for another round of scans. The hairline fracture had healed, yes, but there was inflammation. The vet used terms like degenerative changes, stress on the joints, and early signs of arthritis. Words Evelyn knew all too well. "He's still young," the vet said gently. "But his size. He's a commercial breed, Ev. These pigs were never meant to live long lives. They were bred for fast growth, not longevity." Evelyn nodded, but it hurt to hear it out loud. Back home, Murphy seemed fine, mostly. He still greeted Lily at the bus stop. He still oinked when Evelyn brought his breakfast. But he no longer chased Toby, and when he lay down, it took him longer to get up again. They added more shade to his enclosure. Mark installed a misting system to keep the air cool. Lily switched to brushing him while he rested rather than asking him to follow her around. Murphy seemed grateful, always patient, always gentle, but quieter now. That was when Evelyn began writing in her journal again. She hadn't touched it in years, but she needed a place to put the feelings she couldn't say aloud. June 14th, Murphy slept most of the afternoon. He still smiled when Lily came out with strawberries. But I saw it in his eyes. He's tired, and I can't stop time. I don't know how to prepare her for that. One night, Lily came to Evelyn with a question that stopped her cold. "Will Murphy live as long as Toby?" Evelyn looked into her daughter's eyes and paused. "No, sweetheart. Probably not." Lily blinked. "How long do pigs like him live?" "In the wild, not long. On farms, much shorter. But here?" Evelyn offered a small smile. "We've already given him more life than anyone thought he'd have." Lily didn't cry. Not then. But she sat beside Murphy for a long time that night, curled up against his belly, her fingers laced in his coarse fur. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Later, Mark wrapped an arm around Evelyn in bed. "We did a good thing," he whispered. "I know," she said, voice tight. "But it's going to break her." "It already broke us," he replied. The next week brought a heat wave. Temperatures soared past 100 degrees. Even under shade and misters, Murphy struggled. Evelyn brought him inside and set up a special cooling pad near the AC vent. He lay there most of the day, barely moving except to drink or shift positions. When she checked his temperature on Thursday, it was elevated. Not dangerously so, but enough to worry her. They skipped all therapy visits indefinitely. "No more requests," she told Lily. "We're keeping him close now." By July, Murphy had stopped going outside at all unless it was early morning or after sunset. His legs, now thick and arthritic, no longer cooperated easily. His belly dragged just slightly as he walked. He didn't seem to be in active pain, but he had slowed. Dramatically. Evelyn knew what that meant. It was the same decline she'd seen in dozens of dogs and cats. Except now, it was happening to the pig she'd rescued, raised, and loved like family. That night she opened her journal again. July 8th. Lily asked if Murphy's going to die soon. I told her not yet, but she knows. I see it in her drawings. She started drawing angel wings on him. I don't know if I'm strong enough to carry her through this. The vet came for a home visit the following Tuesday. Dr. Marin, A large animal specialist with a kind face examined Murphy carefully in the barn. She listened to his heart, checked his lungs, tested reflexes. Then she stepped aside with Evelyn. "He's stable," she said. "But I won't lie to you, Evelyn. He's declining. If he were in a sanctuary, he'd be considered geriatric." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Is he in pain?" "Not yet, but he will be. Arthritis this severe only goes one way. You've done more for him than anyone ever could. You've extended his life far beyond what nature allowed." Evelyn looked at Murphy, who was chewing slowly on a frozen fruit treat Lily had made. "Then we give him peace when the time comes," Evelyn said softly. Marin nodded. "And until then, keep doing what you're doing. Love him. Let him rest." That night, Evelyn sat with Lily under the stars. They didn't talk about Murphy directly. They didn't have to. But Evelyn could feel the ache in her daughter's silence. Lily was watching the fireflies, her head on her mother's shoulder, legs curled beneath her. Finally, Lily whispered, "If he has to go, can we be with him?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "Of course." "And can I say goodbye the way I want?" "Yes." Lily nodded. "Okay." The days blurred together after that. They became sacred in their quietness. Slow mornings with apples and gentle brushing. Long afternoons reading beside Murphy in the cool air. Evenings filled with stories and whispered thanks. No more school, no more guests, no more headlines. Just the four of them. Evelyn, Mark, Lily, and Murphy, holding space together as the world spun on. And then, on an early morning in August, Evelyn woke with a jolt. Something was different. She stepped outside, the grass cool beneath her bare feet, and walked to the barn. Murphy was lying in the straw. Breathing, yes, but shallowly. Eyes closed. She called to Mark, then to Lily. The family gathered around him in silence. Lily held his head in her lap, stroking behind his ears, whispering things no one else could hear. Evelyn knelt by his side and kissed the soft patch of fur between his eyes. Mark stood behind them, his hand on Evelyn's shoulder. When Murphy's final breath came, it was gentle, almost like a sigh. And just like that, he was gone. The world didn't end when Murphy died. The sun still rose over the hills of Nebraska, casting golden light across the pasture. The cows lowed. The birds sang. A breeze drifted through the open windows of the Carter house, carrying the scent of summer clover. But inside the barn it was quiet. Too quiet. Evelyn stood over the empty straw bed the next morning, her arms wrapped around her chest like she was holding herself together. The blankets were still there, rumpled and warm. Lily's old quilt, the one she'd sewn with Murphy's name stitched in green thread, lay folded in the corner like it had been waiting for another nap. But there would be no more naps. Lily hadn't spoken much since it happened. Not really. She'd cried that morning, sitting cross-legged beside Murphy's body, whispering her goodbye through choked sobs and tears that soaked his fur. She'd kissed him on the nose just once and said, "Thank you." Then she'd walked inside and curled into her bed, the door closed. Evelyn didn't force her to talk. Grief needed space. Mark spent that day building a small wooden box. He used cedar because Evelyn said Murphy always seemed to like the smell. He sanded every edge, carefully fitted the corners, and added brass hinges that squeaked when opened. He didn't ask anyone to help. He just worked, slow and steady, for hours. That evening, as the sun sank behind the barn, they buried Murphy beneath the tall oak in the pasture. It was the same tree where he used to nap on hot days, tongue lolling, flies buzzing lazily overhead. They laid him in the earth with his quilt, a few apple slices, and one of Lily's books, Charlotte's Web, tucked gently under his chin. No speeches, no prayers, just silence, and a sky painted with the colors of goodbye. For the next week, the house felt dimmer. Toby, the golden retriever, sniffed around the barn every morning and whimpered at the empty space. Evelyn caught herself filling 2 bowls instead of 1 at feeding time. Lily didn't bring out her clipboard anymore, and Evelyn couldn't bring herself to open her journal. Not yet. Mark did his best to hold them together. He made breakfast, fixed the fence, drove Lily to school when she returned the following Monday. But even he was quieter. His jokes didn't land. His eyes looked tired. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from the retirement center Murphy used to visit. A woman named Gloria had written it by hand. "Dear Carter family, we heard about Murphy. I'm so sorry. He used to sit beside me when I knit. I talked to him about my husband, who died 10 years ago. Murphy never interrupted, never judged, just listened. I told him things I never told anyone else. I like to think he kept my secrets. He made me feel less alone. He did that for a lot of us. Thank you for sharing him with the world. Love, Gloria W. Evelyn read the letter aloud at dinner. No one spoke for a moment. Then Lily said softly, "He really mattered, didn't he?" Evelyn nodded. He did. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. The grief didn't disappear, but it changed, became quieter, deeper, more woven into the rhythm of their lives. Lily started drawing again, not just Murphy, but scenes from their time together. Murphy in the snow, Murphy at school, Murphy with a little gold crown on his head, sitting on a throne made of apples. She hung them in the hallway, one by one. Mark began working on the barn, repainting, reorganizing, clearing out the old straw. "Not erasing him," he told Evelyn, "just making room." Evelyn finally opened her journal. August 22nd. He's gone, but I feel him in everything. In the quiet, in the way Lily looks at the pasture, in the way Toby sits by the barn door at night. He left a bigger mark than most people do. And I think, maybe that's the point. They didn't rush to fill the space he left. No new pets, no piglets, no talk of replacements, just memory. One day, Evelyn received a call from a local teacher. "We're putting together a children's storybook anthology," the teacher said. "Real animal stories. Would Lily be willing to write something about Murphy?" Evelyn passed the idea on gently, unsure how her daughter would react. Lily thought about it, then said, "Yes, but I want to draw it too." They worked on it together. Lily wrote in pencil on lined paper first, then typed it out with Evelyn's help. The story was called The Pig Who Listened. It followed Murphy's life from road to rescue, filled with sketches of his adventures, some true, some imagined. The final page showed Murphy with wings, sleeping under the stars. It was simple and beautiful. When the book came out in December, Evelyn ordered 20 copies and gave them to friends, clients, and the residents of the retirement home. Gloria wrote another letter. "Thank you for making him live again, even just on paper." Winter returned, just as harsh as before. The wind howled across the fields. Snow piled high on the fence posts. But this time, the cold didn't sting as much. Murphy's grave was marked with a wooden sign Lily painted herself. It read, "Murphy, our friend, our teacher, our miracle." Below that she'd written, "He didn't need to live long, just enough." That spring, Lily planted a ring of wildflowers around the tree. Daisies, lupine, some violets she'd found at the farmer's market. By April they had begun to bloom. Evelyn stood beside the grave one morning, coffee in hand, watching the petals tremble in the wind. She closed her eyes and breathed. She missed him, every day. But her heart, though scarred, beat stronger now. Because Murphy hadn't just been a pig. He'd been proof. Proof that love, real love, can change everything. The wildflowers around Murphy's grave bloomed for nearly 6 weeks. Every day, Lily brought a small watering can to the pasture after school, even if it had rained. She would hum quietly as she worked, sometimes reading from a new book while sitting cross-legged beside the tall oak. Her voice had changed. Still young, but steadier, calmer. Like she had learned something deeper than her years allowed. Evelyn watched from the kitchen window most days, her heart aching with something that was no longer just grief. It was admiration, pride, and a longing that felt oddly like gratitude. Murphy was gone, but he wasn't. He was in every kindness, every pause, every decision that came from a softer place in their hearts. And Evelyn found herself wondering, often, what it would mean to honor him in the long run. Not just with flowers, but with action. The answer arrived, unexpectedly, on a windy day in mid-April. Evelyn was preparing for a farm call when a young woman appeared at her clinic. She looked about 20, maybe younger, with sunburned cheeks and dirt under her nails. Her hoodie was too big, and her jeans were fraying at the knees. "Are you Dr. Carter?" she asked, voice small. "I am," Evelyn said. "How can I help you?" The girl hesitated, then reached into a worn duffel bag and pulled out a bundle of towels. Inside was a tiny piglet, black and white, barely alive. "I found him behind a dumpster at a feed store," the girl said quickly. "They were going to... I couldn't let them. I don't know what to do." Evelyn took the bundle gently. The piglet was ice cold, breathing shallow. One leg was bent awkwardly. He looked almost identical to how Murphy had looked that first morning, broken and forgotten by the roadside. Without a word, Evelyn turned on the heat lamp above the exam table and began working. Her hands moved automatically, checking temperature, administering fluids, cleaning wounds. She barely noticed when the girl sat down quietly in the corner, clutching her duffel bag like it was armor. 2 hours later, the piglet's breathing had steadied. His leg was splinted. He was wrapped in clean blankets, tucked inside a padded crate by the fire. "He's going to make it," Evelyn said softly. The girl looked up, eyes shining. "Really?" Evelyn nodded. "But he'll need care, a lot of it." "I can't keep him," the girl whispered. "I'm kind of in between places. My boyfriend kicked me out. I've been couch surfing. I saw him and I couldn't walk away." Evelyn sat beside her. "What's your name?" "Riley." "Well, Riley," she said gently, "you did the right thing." Riley stared at the crate. "What happens now?" Evelyn paused, then said, "Now? We build something." That night, Evelyn brought the idea to Mark. "A sanctuary," she said, pacing the kitchen. "Not big, not commercial, just something small. A place for pigs like Murphy, or this little one, or any others that fall through the cracks." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Ev, you already run a clinic. You're already exhausted." "I know," she said. "But we could start slow. We have the pasture. We have the space. People trust us." He leaned back in his chair, considering. "You sure this isn't just grief talking?" "No," Evelyn said. "This is love talking." And for the first time in months, Mark smiled. They called it Murphy's Meadow. The name came from Lily, of course. She drew the first logo, a cartoon version of Murphy with a crown of flowers and a crooked smile. Evelyn set up a basic website. Mark called in a few favors and built a second small barn near the original one. Word spread faster than they expected. Within a month they had 4 pigs, 3 rescues from a nearby farm that had shut down, and 1, a pot-bellied pig, who'd been abandoned in someone's backyard. Lily helped clean pens. Mark did the heavy lifting. Evelyn handled health checks and outreach. Riley, the girl who had brought the first new piglet, came by once a week to volunteer. "I don't know anything about animals," she admitted. "You know enough," Evelyn said. By early summer they had a rhythm, and the emails started coming. Families asking for advice, shelters trying to place pigs, schools wanting to partner on educational visits, children sending drawings of Murphy, some in crayon, some digitally colored and printed on paper that still smelled like glue. Evelyn kept every single one in a folder by her desk. One morning, Lily stood in the doorway with her sketchbook. "I have an idea," she said. "What is it?" "A new book, like The Pig Who Listened, but this time it's about Murphy's Meadow, and all the animals that get second chances." Evelyn smiled. "You think people would want to read that?" Lily nodded. "I think people need to." That summer, the meadow became a sanctuary in every sense of the word, not just for pigs, but for people. A woman who'd lost her husband came every Thursday just to sit under the oak tree. A teenager recovering from depression began volunteering on weekends, brushing the pigs and journaling in a quiet corner. Even Evelyn found moments of peace, real peace, watching the new rescues settle into their routines. And sometimes, in the stillness of morning, when the dew was still clinging to the grass, Evelyn could almost feel Murphy beside her. Not physically, but in the way the world seemed more open now, more forgiving, more alive. By mid-August, Murphy's Meadow was no longer just a name on a wooden sign. It was a living, breathing place. The pasture that once held only Murphy's quiet footprints now bore the signs of many. Crisscrossing hoofprints, low wooden structures with patchy paint jobs, and little handmade wind chimes that Lily hung from every tree branch she could reach. The small barn had doubled in size. Mark built an overhang on the south side, and a new pen with soft sand and a shade netting to protect against the rising heat. Evelyn installed mist fans along the interior wall and brought in special cooling mats for the older pigs. She kept a whiteboard with names and notes. Samson, arthritis meds, Dixie, diet watch, Ollie, behavioral follow-up. The first piglet, the one Riley had brought in, had been named Sprout. He'd grown quickly, not as large as Murphy had, but strong and clever in his own right. Lily taught him how to sit, turn in a circle, and ring a bell for food. Just like Murphy, she said, eyes bright. But Sprout wasn't Murphy. He was his own soul. Mischievous, lean, with a black splotch over his left eye like a pirate's patch. He loved knocking over his water bowl and seemed to think the broom was an enemy worthy of battle. Still, he was healing. And happy. And so was the meadow. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges. One of the older pigs, Bella, refused to eat for nearly a week after arriving. Evelyn spent hours sitting beside her, feeding her soft fruit by hand, and talking gently until Bella finally nuzzled into her lap. Another, a boar named Timber rescued from a fighting ring, lashed out every time someone came near. "He doesn't trust yet," Evelyn told Lily. "But he might, one day." Every pig had a story, and soon, so did the people. Local teens began signing up for summer volunteer hours. A retired teacher offered to run weekend reading sessions under the oak tree, letting children read aloud while the pigs dozed nearby. The local grocery store donated bruised produce once a week, bananas, melons, even the occasional crate of pears, and visitors kept arriving. They didn't always stay long, but they came. Some drove for hours, some came alone. Some came with children, or cameras, or sketch pads, but all came for something gentle, something quiet, something real. And they found it here. Evelyn noticed it first during a Saturday community day. A woman sat quietly on a hay bale, tears in her eyes, as Sprout curled beside her. Her husband stood nearby, arms crossed, clearly unsure. "My father was a hog farmer," the woman said finally, stroking Sprout's back. "He made me feed them, even when I cried. I didn't touch a pig for 30 years. Evelyn didn't say anything. The woman looked up. "But I think Murphy would have liked me." "I think so too," Evelyn said. Lily, meanwhile, was writing again. She carried a leather-bound notebook everywhere, a birthday gift from Evelyn, and filled it with sketches, story drafts, dialogue. "I want to publish another book," she said. "But this time I want it to be about more than just Murphy. About all of them, and maybe even the people who come here." "What would you call it?" Evelyn asked. Lily paused. "The Meadow That Listened." Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. "That's beautiful." And it was. Because the meadow wasn't just a refuge for animals anymore. It was a place of remembering, of rewriting, of release. That fall, something extraordinary happened. A group of students from the University of Nebraska reached out to Evelyn. They had seen an article about Murphy's Meadow in a local paper and wanted to feature it in a student-led documentary about community healing through animal rescue. They arrived with cameras and microphones, spending 3 weekends filming. Lily reading to Sprout, Riley grooming Dixie, Evelyn trimming hooves and explaining pig social behavior. The footage was raw, real, and at times emotional. They interviewed volunteers. They captured quiet moments, like Mark sitting silently by Murphy's grave in the early dawn, coffee in hand, a gentle nod to the memory of the pig who had started it all. When the film premiered at a local auditorium in November, it was standing room only. The screen flickered to life. Murphy's face filled it first. That iconic photo Evelyn had taken. Him in the kitchen, nose smeared with peanut butter, eyes wide with curiosity. Then came footage of Lily's presentation from years ago. Her small voice filled the room. "He's not just a pig. He's family." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. After the screening, the applause was thunderous. Evelyn hugged Lily tightly, whispering, "You did that. You made people feel again." But the story didn't end there. A week later, Evelyn received a letter from a nearby university's veterinary program. They wanted to partner with Murphy's Meadow, send students to learn about pig care, behavior, and emotional enrichment. They were even willing to provide grant funding. The opportunity brought tears to Evelyn's eyes. "I never imagined this," she told Mark. He smiled. Murphy did. And then came winter. The meadow didn't stop. It just slowed. The pigs stayed closer to their barns. Volunteers came bundled in coats and scarves. Riley, now working full-time at a local animal shelter, still visited on weekends, sometimes just to sit and drink coffee beside Bella or Samson. Lily continued writing. Sprout had grown into a sleek, proud little pig who thought he ruled the barn. He still rang his bell, still knocked over buckets. But now, every time he did, someone laughed. And laughter, Evelyn realized, was Murphy's truest legacy. The meadow was healing, not healed, never perfect, but growing. And as snow began to fall again, dusting the oak tree and settling gently over the sign that bore Murphy's name, Evelyn understood something she hadn't before. The story wasn't about losing him. It was about what grew from his life. Roots, connections, hope. By the time spring came around again, Murphy's meadow had become a fixture in the region. It wasn't just a sanctuary anymore, it was a movement. There were field trips from schools now, not just from Lily's district but from counties Evelyn had never visited. There were volunteers from as far as Iowa and Kansas, people who had read about the meadow or seen the student documentary and felt drawn to the place where a single pig's story had reshaped hearts and laws alike. The meadow had expanded to house not only pigs but also 2 goats, a rescued turkey named Thomas, and a chicken with a limp that Riley had fallen in love with and named Ginger Snap. The additions weren't planned, they just happened, because animals in need kept finding their way there, and no one in the Carter family could say no. They built another barn in early April. This one was slightly larger and more insulated, a multi-purpose structure that could be used for education, recovery, or simply shelter. Mark, with the help of 2 volunteers and a local carpenter who insisted on donating his time, designed the walls with extra windows and a sloped roof that let in sunlight even on gray days. They named it Murphy Hall. Inside, Lily painted a mural. It began with a winding dirt road, the silhouette of a truck in the distance. Then came the image of a small piglet tumbling into weeds, bruised and tiny. The next panel showed hands, Evelyn's hands, lifting him in a flannel blanket. Then, frame by frame, the piglet grew. In the final panel, Murphy stood beneath an oak tree, surrounded by pigs, goats, and children reading books. Overhead, a blue sky full of stars. At the top of the mural, in Lily's now steady cursive handwriting, were the words, "Sometimes, the smallest rescues leave the biggest prints." When the barn was finished, Evelyn hosted the meadow's first official open house. Families arrived in vans and pickup trucks. Some brought food donations, others brought questions. A few just brought silence, the kind that came from people who had been waiting for a place like this and didn't know it until they arrived. Evelyn gave tours. Riley ran the check-in table. Mark grilled hot dogs, plant-based only, by unanimous household decree. Lily led a Pig 101 demonstration, featuring Sprout, who'd learned how to bow theatrically on command. Afterward, Evelyn stood under the oak tree near Murphy's grave, talking to an older man with a heavy accent and eyes that had seen too much. "I grew up on a pig farm," he said. "Eastern Europe. My father didn't name the animals. Said names made it harder." Evelyn nodded quietly. The man looked around. "He was right. It is harder. But it's better too." That night, as the sun set and the meadow emptied, Evelyn lingered by the mural. The barn was quiet, save for the soft rustle of straw and the contented snorts of full, sleepy animals. Lily was inside helping Riley with evening feedings. Mark was fixing a squeaky hinge. Evelyn reached out and traced the painted curve of Murphy's back. "Thank you," she whispered, and meant it more than anything she'd ever said. Weeks passed, then months. Seasons turned. The meadow kept going. Evelyn still ran her clinic, though she'd passed off a few clients to younger vets and reduced her hours. Not because she was tired, though she was, but because she wanted more time at the meadow, with the animals, with Lily, with what they'd built. Lily kept drawing. Her second book, The Meadow That Listened, was picked up by a small publisher specializing in children's stories about animals and empathy. She was invited to speak at a regional youth writers event. At 13, she stood in front of an auditorium and talked about Murphy with a calm confidence that made Evelyn tear up. Riley applied to veterinary technician school. She used Murphy's story as part of her application essay. She got in. And the pigs? They kept arriving. Some were dumped at the edge of nearby roads. Others came through shelters or law enforcement. Some were surrendered by owners who loved them but couldn't care for them anymore. Each one had a name now, a history, and a chance, just like Murphy. But it wasn't until the meadow's second anniversary that Evelyn truly realized how far they'd come. It was a cool Saturday in May, and the family held a small gathering for volunteers and donors. Just something simple. Sandwiches, lemonade, a few stories. They didn't expect many to come. Over 100 did. People stood in line to take photos with Sprout. Children made handprint pigs out of construction paper. An elderly woman from the retirement center brought a scrapbook of Murphy photos from his visits. But the most surprising guest came late. It was the man who had driven the livestock truck, the one from all those years ago. Evelyn recognized him immediately. Older now, slower, but unmistakable. He stood near the barn entrance, hat in his hands, not making eye contact. "I didn't come to cause trouble," he said quickly. "I heard about the meadow, about the pig. I didn't know, back then, what happened." Evelyn approached him slowly. "We never blamed you," she said gently. "I blamed myself," he muttered. "When I saw that story on the news, I figured it might have been one of mine." He looked up. "I've changed since then. I stopped hauling livestock. I volunteer at a shelter now. Just dogs and cats, but I guess I wanted to say thank you for doing what I couldn't." Evelyn put a hand on his shoulder. "Murphy changed all of us." The man nodded, tears in his eyes, then left without another word. That night, Evelyn wrote her final entry in the journal she'd started the day Murphy arrived. May 24th. 2 years ago today, a pig fell off a truck, and everything changed. I thought I was rescuing him, but he rescued all of us. He taught me that the loudest changes come from the quietest hearts. He taught Lily how to hope, Mark how to believe, Riley how to rebuild. Me? He taught me how to let go, and how to keep going, not despite the heartbreak, but because of it. She closed the book and set it on the shelf, then walked outside, barefoot in the grass, to sit beneath the oak. The stars were bright that night, impossibly bright. And in the stillness, Evelyn swore she heard it. That soft, familiar grunt. That echo of joy. That whisper of forever. Murphy. Not gone, just changed, like all good things do.